And there's the find of the day. I just spotted that in that little hole in the sand, and that is beautiful Fraser River Jade. Can't wait to take that home and cut it and show you what that looks like inside. And yes, I lick rocks. Well, hello everyone, Dan Hurd with Dan Hurd Prospecting here. Welcome back to my channel, and if you're new, welcome. I hope to earn your subscription today. As you can see, winter is upon us. There's no getting out prospecting right now. We finally had winter hit, and with a vengeance. But there's still some things I can do. That chunk of jade I found on the Fraser River months ago. Let's take it to the shop, cut it, test it, see if it is actually jade, and see what we can do with it. So wish me luck, and I hope you enjoy. Well, here I am in the lapidary shop where I have all my saws for cutting rocks. And today we are going to be looking at this beast. I can't believe I've left it so long. It was like 3-4 months ago I found this. But I knew I had to leave a few things for the winter. A few things to do over the winter. And this is looking like it might be the most amazing Fraser River Nephrite Jade. Yes, it's very dark, but that's what the Fraser River is known for. I am really hoping I can get it into the 14-inch saw today. To get it onto the big saw means I have to go outside in the snow. Now, as I am learning, most of the rocks that look kind of like jade on the Fraser River are actually serpentine, or what we call gem serpentine. And this quite possibly could be, but it's showing me a few things that make me think it's jade over serpentine. And we're going to be testing that today to find out. Where it is got these flaking off fractures, I'm seeing a really beautiful translucent green, so I know it's translucent. I'm seeing the grain on the end of the rock here that really indicates jade. And it is polished. The river has polished it, so it's very, very hard. But that I will test once I get a fresh cut. I'll test to see how hard it is. And check out what it looks like when we put the, get the right setting, the jade light on it. Let's get the close up on that. Beautiful, translucent green. This could be jade. Wouldn't that be amazing? Well, let's see if it'll fit in the saw. Could have backed this off before I turned the camera on. Whatever. So my first plan here is to cut a little bit off the end so I can actually see what's inside the rock. Once I can see what's inside the rock, it gives me a flat, fresh surface that I can test its hardness, and it also lets me see the figure inside, because on the outside of jade is often different from what's inside of it. Jade often gets a skin or a rind on it. Let's see if this thing will fit in here. Oh yeah, we'll get this in. I can't quite take off the end. That's as far over as I can go, and I'm going to be taking a big chunk off it. But that's okay. That will work. I could flip it around, take a bit off this end. Oh, that might be a better option. Let me do that. There we go. Tighten that in really well. Where's my wrench? Make sure it's really tight. Good. We're gonna move it over, so I'm just taking a little bit off the end to start with, but still have lots of room to make a couple slabs. Because once I take an end cut off, then I want to take a thin slice and see how translucent this is. There we go. All set up, ready to cut. Just a little end cap off to start with. And while that's cutting, may as well get the rest of the saws going. That one's already got something set up on it. This one, oh, almost done a cut. This guy, he's ready to be switched over. This guy's cutting a slab, and this one is ready to be switched over. You gotta check this out. I was cutting on that saw what I thought was a piece of mostly garbage. The outside of the saw did not, or outside of the rock, looked like almost nothing. Look what's inside. The showing on the one face I cut was quite boring, but wow. Anyhow, this video is not about Ocean Picture Stone. It's about Jade. Just killing time while it cuts. Well, the first cut's done. This will tell us a whole lot. It won't tell us the whole story, but ooh, let's have a look. Ooh. Looking good so far. Let's get that cleaned up and put a light on it. Let's have a look. Great looking translucency in here. Really nice translucency. Looking good. Okay, we're gonna start with a thick slab. I've moved it over 1/4 inch. We're gonna take a 1/4 inch slab off, and then we'll take a nice thin one. And we'll see how light affects both. And just off the big saw. Well, the first slab came out nice. The flaw that's running through the rock is running right through here, and I can see it through here. It held together, but I wouldn't want to carve anything out of this along that side because there is a flaw there. That section is good. Anyhow, the thinner slab just finished cutting. Now this one's really thin, so it probably fell apart. Oh, maybe not. Put a piece of wood in there to hold it upright, and it fell apart, like I thought it would. That flaw runs through the whole rock. Let's go see what this looks like with some light behind it. Now, one thing I didn't point out earlier that you may have seen it, the rock has one major flaw that runs through the whole rock. A linear, it's kind of like a vein or a crack or a fissure. And the end cap did break apart at that. I assume my slabs, as I cut them off, are going to come apart at that flaw. It's right there, and the end cap did. So I assume the slabs will. But this top half is very solid. Look at that. Really interesting pattern. I'm really hoping that's jade. A scratch test will tell us for sure. That is awesome. The next slab I take, I'm gonna make it a 1/4 inch, no, a 1/2 inch thick. So we have a 1/8 inch slab, a 1/4 inch slab. Ooh, see if the 1/4 one passes light. Oh yeah, baby. And we're gonna go for a 1/2 inch thick slab because if this stuff turns out hard enough, I wanna make myself a jade ring. And I want it to be a 1/2 inch thick. Now, one thing I'm not liking is some of these inclusions, these orange looking inclusions. Those could be an indication of serpentine. Definitely have to take a scratch and find out. Oops. There we are, 1/2 inch. And well, that rock cuts. I picked up another rock that same day, and it looks very similar. Let's throw it in one of the other saws and get some cuts off it. And before I throw it in the saw, here's the type of flaw I saw on the other rock going right through it. That'll probably end up being a crack going through this rock as well. And there's one on the end, and then there's one up on the surface. So we can probably still get good chunks out of this if this turns out to be jade, but we have to be conscious of those natural flaws that are already in the stone. All right, we have an 1/8 inch, a 1/4 inch, and a 1/2 inch slab. It's now time for the scratch test. For the scratch test, we're going to be using my handy dandy scratch test kit, which has scribes of varying hardnesses that you can very hard press and scratch against the surface of the material that you're testing. If it leaves a scratch, you know the scribe is harder than the material. I will be using today a 6 on here and probably a 5 and a 7 as well, but jade should not get scratched by a 6. A 7 should scratch it, a 5 should not. Let's have a look and see what happens.
Now first, I'm going to go for a 7, which is harder than jade. This should scratch, whether it's jade, serpentine, anything. This should scratch it. Let's see if a 7 scratches this. Ooh. Ooh, it does, but it's hard. There we go. Pushing really hard, I can get a scratch with a 7. Now, let's try a 6. Okay, here is a 6. Six isn't scratching it. Let's try the 7 again. Right there. 7 scratches in. 6 is just rubbing off the surface. If you see marks left behind right now, that is metal from the scribe itself. There's metal coming off this scribe on the surface. That's interesting. Very interesting. Oh, wasn't quite in frame. There you go. Maybe I'll zoom in a bit more on that to show you what we're actually seeing. Okay, again on the 7, which should scratch it. You can feel it's digging in, leaving a scratch. If I rub it off, you can still see there is a mark there. It is scratched. Try it again with the 6. Those marks you're seeing aren't scratches. Look at that. 7 is still there. 6 is not scratching. That is a good sign.
That doesn't guarantee it's jade. That just gives it a much better chance of being jade or nephrite, because serpentine is soft below 6 and will get scratched by a 6 scribe. Jade is about 6.5, or nephrite 6.5, should not be scratched by a 6 scribe. That's a good sign. Let's do a specific gravity test on this and see how heavy it is. Jade should be above 3. Serpentine should be below 3. And to do a specific gravity test, I'm going to take this big 1/2-inch slab here. I'm going to figure out its volume by doing a water displacement test. Dip it in water and see how much water it displaces, and then measure its weight. With a little bit of calculation, you can figure out its density.
Well, before we do the measurements for the specific gravity, since I have it up here in the good light in the photo box, let's have a good look at this. Really like the modeled look of this nephrite or serpentine. Beautiful stuff. I'm not positive yet that this is jade. I do see some indications here that this could still be a gem serpentine. However, the hardness is definitely indicating nephrite jade. I don't like these inclusions in it because they are slightly magnetic. Now, I did read an article from a university thesis saying that nephrite jade can go anywhere from non-magnetic to very magnetic depending on how much iron is in it. And jadeite is never magnetic. But one of the ways that you tell serpentine over nephrite jade is serpentine is usually magnetic. So the fact that we have some magnetic inclusions, they're only very slightly magnetic, but as another indication, it might be serpentine.
Okay, to find the density of this rock. If you haven't seen my other videos, it's pretty simple. You need to find the volume of the rock, and we do that with a bin in a bin. You fill the first one with water until you have so much, you can't fit any more water in. One more drop and it would spill over.
Right at the very top. Then you need to completely submerge your rock
in the bin. Completely. And you probably do it a little more carefully than I just did there. I splashed a bit. But the water flowing out and over the first bin is the exact same volume as the rock you put in. Now all we have to do is measure the volume of the water in the second bin. Get it all out. You need it all.
And very carefully, not up, not down, right level with the water to figure out how much the volume is. And looking at the flat level of the water, not the little meniscus that's rising up, we see here we have 132 milliliters.
And a quick measurement of the weight, 398 grams. Now I can find out the density.
Now let's look at the numbers. Specific gravity of serpentine is between 2.2 and 2.9. The specific gravity of nephrite is 2.9 to 3.02. Well, you calculate specific gravity by taking the weight and dividing by the volume. In this case, the weight of the piece was 398 grams, and the volume was 132 milliliters. That's the equivalent of centimeters cubed. When you plug those numbers into a calculator, it comes out to having a specific gravity of 3.02, the high end of nephrite. Yes, I know there's some people out there say there's the odd situation where serpentine can have a higher specific gravity. But those numbers there are the sort of accepted norms of the density of both serpentine and nephrite. Specific gravity suggests that's nephrite.
Well, jade or serpentine, either way, it is a beautiful rock. Let's flip this whole thing around now and cut some chunks for usable lapidary material off the end. Just got a good view where I rubbed the oil off. This is a beautiful stone. I'm going to move the carriage over as far as I can, which will tell me where I make my first cut. Then I'm going to cut blocks off. There it is.
And I think I'm going to take one of those blocks into the shop and see if I can make something.
The saw is struggling.
One thing about these hard, and very tough rocks is they're really hard to cut.
And the saw, I can hear it. It's really grunting to get through that piece, especially now that I'm going through the thickest part of it. Sorry, all the saws are on. It's really loud in here. But if you remember earlier, I said there was a flaw in this rock. I just cut the end off, and it really shows the flaw running through the middle of the rock here. It's actually kind of like two rocks. Before I cut that into sellable pieces, I will purposely break off that chunk. Let's see if I can do that right now. Because this other side is actually not usable, because that flaw would cause problems if you're carving or making jewelry, I'm going to attempt to break it off. Yes. Break off that. That's a usable piece. You can still make jewelry and stuff out of that. This is now a piece that could be carved into, I don't know, this looks like a seal sitting on a rock. Oh yeah. But nice and solid once that's taken off. And if you're asking, what about that other piece you put on the saw? Well, I just got the first slab off it. Let's see how translucent it is. Oh yeah, look at that color. It's a very dark green, very, very dark green, but beautiful. I think I want to make a pendant out of that stuff. Woo! And since I'm all set up, let's check out its density and hardness.
Well, there you go. This piece here has a density of 2.9 and a hardness between 5 and 6. Beautifully translucent, beautiful green, but that there will be a piece of gem serpentine, not nephrite. Let's get back to the main piece. Now, before we look at all the slabs I cut, let's look at the chunks I've cut off that piece. I tried to get a nice variety of sizes and shapes. So if people want some jade or serpentine for carving, there's lots of options. And as always, any of my material that I work with here, that I've cut, that I processed, that people might want, is available on my website, www.danhurdprospecting.com. And I'll be putting all of these pieces up in its own subcategory under the Jade and Serpentine category. A little bit of backlit action going on here. And the slabs, they look wunderbar. And you have to remember with all these slabs that this rock did have that one flaw through the edge there. So you couldn't actually make anything out of that edge without stabilizing it or something, because that edge would fall apart. But the rest of the slab is in good shape. And these slabs are anywhere from about a 1/2 inch thick down to about an 1/8 inch thick. Actually, I think I'm taking the 1/8 inch one to the shop to make something for myself, some pendants out of. So it's probably 1/4 inch to 1/2 in these slabs. Now, I'm not going to say if this is or is not jade. I will just tell you the properties it has. Its hardness is above 6. Its density is above 3. It's beautifully translucent, but it does have very slight magnetism. I will let you decide for yourself if you think it is jade or serpentine. Whichever way, it is a beautiful stone. Now let's see if I can book myself some time into the lapidary shop and make something of this great material and see how well it works and how tough it is.
Oops, there's still a couple blocks to come off the saw.
Now, before I sign off the video, I have to clarify something from the last jade video I made. I was explaining how jade forms underground in certain environments. It forms from 2 different rocks and a metamorphic process, all that. And I was trying to be more thorough without boring my viewers. But one of our local jade experts saying, Dan, you missed something that was really important. Now, what he was referring to is I said that jade forms from 2 different rocks deep down in the earth under heat, pressure in a certain environment. And what I missed in that is that the environment has to have a calcium-rich fluid. Now, typically those 2 different rocks are serpentine and something like a slate or a shale or something like that, but it has to be in a calcium-rich fluid or near a rock that had lots of calcium in it. And the calcium is what's changing those other rocks, the serpentine and slate, into jade. So there you go, Dave. Hopefully that clarifies it a little bit more. Yes, you need that calcium as well. Hope that's a little bit better for you.
And there's still a few more rocks down here ready to be looked at to see if they're serpentine or jade.
But that's for another time. Hope you all enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave that thumbs up. If I haven't earned your subscription yet, I hope I earned it today. And a big thanks to everyone for watching. Hope you're all having a great day. And until the next one, bye.